We have you go for orbit here. Go for orbit.
So we had been training as an Apollo 2 crew for about 6 months. In the Apollo 1 crew, they were testing the some system inside the spacecraft when they died in the fire on the pad. A couple weeks later, Wally, Don, and I were assigned to the prime crew now of the first Apollo mission that ended up being called Apollo 7. When we had made about 1,040 changes, a lot of them were important operationally or critically. So we ended up 21 months later launching. For us, we were just doing what we did. We loved the flying, we loved all that stuff. When we got into orbit, everything was going the way we expected it to go. To us, it was like flying an airplane still. One of the things that had not been done before in orbit was television. The camera that we had was terribly poor. It was pitiful. We kind of had fun. It was a break from the real work because we could take pictures of some guys floating around and doing stuff like that, and we'd had some signs made. We got notified sometime later that we'd got an Emmy for the first live television from space. And I remember Wally and I saying, we'll fly out to Hollywood and we'll have a good time while we're out there. And NASA says, So my Emmy came in a crate. It was boxed up and came in a crate. But it was, to me, not a big deal about our mission. It was kind of what we did with the spare time when we had it. It was going beautifully well. Rendezvous, docking, pictures when we could. Wally had one of his first talks with the ground, which kind of ticked them off. It was the first flight. We were supposed to have everything on, ready to go, take any kind of emergencies on re-entry and all that kind of stuff. Well, we talked about Wally having a cold. Wally was still concerned about his ears being blocked during re-entry. The interesting part about it was not wearing the helmet to come back. Wally thought he might have to blow his nose to clear his ears, and that became a fighting thing with the ground. Wally basically said, no matter what you think, we're not going to wear the helmets. He was the commander, so we worked for him, so we didn't wear that helmet. At the time, they raised hell about it because that was what the rules had been and what they had used always in the past. But every Apollo mission after that one, they did not wear a helmet during re-entry. And we even got to the points where they didn't have to put on a pressure suit. That's the one time where Wally's individuality there, in my opinion, really paid off. We had to do re-entry. It was about 30 minutes to get in, and we were going 17,500 miles an hour. We splashed down, and our spacecraft turned over. And there's the ocean water down there, you see on your windows, kind of bouncing up and down. I think we were on the carrier an hour after we splashed down. First thing I remember is we had to go in and get checked out. Doctors like to look you over. And I remember it was very hard laying down on the pad that they had there. You felt like you were just going to go through it because for the first time in 11 days, you weighed something. And I can remember laying there, I can remember looking up at the ceiling and thinking, gee, if I was in a spacecraft, I'd just kind of flex my shoulders and I'd go up there and turn around, what have you. 50 years later, Apollo 7 is still the longest, most ambitious, the most successful first test flight of any new flying machine ever. All that work that we put into it really worked out. I seem to be benefiting from the reputation I established over 86 years of living. I'm a physicist by education. I'm theoretically retired. I do some speaking from time to time. I have had a good life, and I had particular enjoyment out of the 8 years that I was with NASA. But I think that life should not be just one thing that some people operate on. I get the same satisfaction out of a lot of things I've done in my life. I always approach them the same way, the same kind of enthusiasm, the same kind of critique about them. The most important thing in my life, because it enabled a lot of the other parts of it, was becoming a Marine Corps fighter pilot. It enabled the kind of thinking, it enabled me the kind of opportunities that I did. I'm just glad that I had the life I did, and I'm glad that I had the attitude I did about whatever it was. Maybe I'm just not honest enough to face the downsides of these things, but that's the way it is.